Oh, that's going to be fun. Can you hear the cat?
All right. Hello. Welcome to Intro to Video Editing with OpenShot. This is David, our presenter today. He works at OpenSignal Community Media Center, and he is going to be teaching how to use the free open source program OpenShot. Everybody's going to be muted to start with. Oh, hi. And then if you have questions, you can type them in the chat and I'll relay them, or at the end of the session, we'll unmute everybody so you can ask questions then too, if you would rather do that. So he is going to be sharing some information with you. He's going to be sharing his screen. And this is being recorded, so later on we'll post this video so you can revisit it if you want to do that. And with that, David, you can take it away.
All right. Well, welcome. My name is David. I work for OpenSignal, Portland Community Media Center. It's been around since 1980, and we primarily have been a cable public access center that gives people access to equipment and resources and help to create video and audio projects as well as art and other multimedia things. So that's my background. I've been there for about 5 years, and I program the channels there as well as lots of other things like teaching editing and whatnot. So today we are going to focus on a program called OpenShot. It is a free open source program that anyone can download and install on their computers. There are some slight requirements. It should work. It's operating system neutral, which means you can run it on Apple, Windows devices, or Linux. Though if you have an older system, it may not run so well, but it is a pretty lightweight program. There are other open source editing programs that are also free, but OpenShot was the one I'll be using today, primarily, to be honest, because it works on Apple and PCs. The other one that I wanted to focus on doesn't work so well with Apple, so we'll just go with this one. But I'll talk about those other options at the end of this. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which is right here. And I can close this. It's going to be a little messy, and I apologize. I do have a little bit of a hindrance with that guy. So first thing I'm going to do is there should be some links in the chat of the Zoom program that'll give you, I made a quick guide PDF and some sample editing programs or video files that you can download and use as you desire. The quick guide is not, it's very basic. It's just hit the main points, and if you want to delve further, it's just going to take some exploring and things like that, like everything. So OpenShot, once you have it installed, you just download it from the openshot.org website. And when you install it and first open it, it's going to look like this. Plugging in my headphones now so I can communicate a little differently. All right, so the OpenShot program is going to have a layout that will be similar to basically any video editing program that's available. The prominent ones that you'll hear about are like Adobe Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, but they're all going to be the same type of layout where you're going to have basically a project bin. This is where you're going to import video files uh, and audio files and graphics, the stuff you actually want to edit. And then you're going to have a window here, a video preview window where you can actually watch the progress that you're doing. And then you're going to have the timeline. And this is where your editing will be taking place, where you actually be making the cuts and arranging of the files and layers that you want to make your project look the way you want to make it look. Now, I'll follow the little quick guide I made kind of loosely, but I'm going to hit the main points and try to cover some more details without getting too bogged down in the weeds, because I know it's easy to get overwhelmed with a lot of information. So I'll try to hit the main things to get the job done, but be aware that there's a lot you can do with this, a lot of different effects and things that you can do that we're not going to touch on. It's just going to take some exploration and practice to get familiar with it. Just like any editing program you'd be using, it's just going to take time and practice to figure it out. I just want to give you the entry and how to do the basic stuff to then build on. So with the general layout, one thing I like to do is, well, we'll go over the tools and whatnot here. So the layout, we have these little quadrants, how it's broken up. You can change the view, and I like to do this, at least for this program, because I like to see the effects and things and be able to manipulate stuff as I put it on. So I actually go to the show all view, which will add a little column here to the left called properties. And what this does is this will actually, when you import a file into the timeline, all its properties will show up. They'll let you adjust it and whatnot, which I will show you as soon as we get some files in there. So for the view, this is how I like it for this particular program, but you can always change the views here under views. You can go back to simple view. There's one called advanced view, which lets you, it divides basically the project files and the effects and transitions into their own little windows here. But they're all nested here. You can access all of this stuff through the main view. For my purposes, I'll just go with this show all view. Well, I think I have to go back to the simple view first. There. And this program is open source, which means it's made by people who, just community members. They all build on it and they frequently update it. So it'll always be evolving, new effects, new things, and new, hopefully, like capabilities to evolve with the technologies as they go along. And if there's bugs and stuff, there'll be patches. So it'll frequently update. It's just kind of how it is, but it also will have limitations as a result of that too. So always be looking for updates and things as the program goes along, because there's frequently patches and whatnot. All right, so I have the view how I want it. To get started, first thing you need to do for editing is import the files you want to edit. There's lots of ways to do it. I will try to just focus on the things, but realize there's lots of ways to get the same thing done. I'll do this one by example, what I mean by that. So to import video files, go to File and go to Import Files. It'll have a selection window pop up, and you go to the files that you want to edit. You just find them. I have a folder that I've created called OpenShot class files, and I'm just going to import all of these, but not the PDF thing. That. So I'm gonna import all these titles and video files that I want to work with here. As you can see, it's running through them and importing them, and they're all going to appear in the project files window here. So this is what we have to work with. If you want to add more, you can always just go to File, Import Files, and select it wherever your other files are. As you can see, I imported a bunch of files at once. You can do entire folders, or you can, if they're in different places on your computer, just find where they are. But there's And this is the one time I'll get into the weeds of alternative ways to do the same thing. If you want to import files, there's lots of ways to do it. You can right click in this window and just go to import files, same thing. There's hotkeys for a Mac, it's Command F, so Command F, same thing pops up in the selector. And finally, another way to import files, if you really want to, you can just go to it and drag it right into the folder. This one's already there, so it's not going to import something that's already there, but like I can just drag something else and it'll import it right into there to work with. So lots of ways to do it. Just be aware of that. If you sometimes you'll find some weird workaround, which isn't the most efficient way to do something, but the important thing when it comes to editing, as you're learning, is you just get the job done. The final product is what matters. Sometimes, especially for when you're new to something, it'll take longer. You'll figure it out, and then as you go along, you'll like, wow, I could have done this a lot quicker, had I known this before. That's just how it is. I'm always learning. It's part of the process. All right, so I've imported a bunch of files here. That's the first step. Now let's do the basic editing of this. I have here, and a big thing about editing is you want to have good file organization so you don't get too lost. This is pretty loosely organized. I have my main file here, which I call Joey interview. Then I have some B-roll footage that I just found. And then I have a sound effect, some music, green screen, and then some graphics and other things. If you want to get rid of something that you imported because you're not going to use it, you can just right click it and hit remove from project, and that'll delete it. And always with editing or these programs, there's always a undo feature, and it's the same thing with copy and paste, all that stuff that you find with every program. It's all functional and usable with this program as well. All right, so stuff is imported. For the view, if you want to adjust it, you can go to these sliders to make things more visible, more easily for you to use. I'm going to, because I have a limited real estate, I'm going to move this properties column over a bit, and I'm going to make the timeline a little bigger. Basically, I'm just grabbing onto these little ellipsy things, and you can see when I hover my mouse, it changes, and that means that the function of it is actually changing. All right, so I'll start by dragging something I want to edit onto the timeline. I'm going to just Joey interview. I drop it on there, and immediately you'll see that it shows up in the video preview where I can actually now watch the stuff by hitting play. And you should have some audio. There we go.
So as far as irrational, maybe like everything.
And you can fast forward and track to the end and beginning with this on here. And the timeline is just what it is. It's a timeline where it shows how long the video is, and you can jump around with the playhead, which is this red line here, to where you want on the timeline, where you need to make your edits. And then if you need to zoom in and out, you actually have a little slider here to zoom in and out on the timeline to make more refined cuts that you'll need to make as you go along. Forgive me for being quick on this. I'm just sort of hitting the basics, and I know it'll be flying through some of this stuff. So now the properties column, as you can see, what I like about this is it shows all the properties of a file that's selected on the timeline. So as you can see, I select this Joey interview, this properties column populates with all the stuff, and each of these is a way to adjust and manipulate the video as you go along to what you need. So for example, this Joey interview, if I wanted to adjust where it is on the screen, you can do that through this properties. You can do like various cropping, move things around. I'm going to undo that. You can adjust the rotation and the scale if you want to do that. Undo, position again. Scale would be like if you want to zoom in on something. So here's, or stretch and make things smaller. Undo that. It's just something you'll experiment with to get what you want. There's lots of different features on here. Some I don't know what they do because I haven't, they're a little foreign to me. Like I'm not sure what wave color will do, but it's for experimentation on that. So here's the video file. It's on track 1. I'm now going to do some editing of this because this is raw footage. It's going to have all the junk that I don't want in there. The whole point of editing is to chop it up as you see fit. So one of the things I like to do when editing is I like to see the audio track. And what I don't like about this program is that you can't see it from the get-go. But one way to see it is you right-click on the track, and you can actually see things, different properties here that'll let you show the display, show the waveform. And that's what I like to do because I find editing off of the sound of the audio, you can actually see when people are talking, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to know where you want your cuts. So as you can see, once I hit show waveform, it has this little blue waveform that appears, and this is, you know, the peaks and valleys of the audio of the video itself. So I can actually move the playhead, and let's zoom in a bit so we can see that better. I can move the playhead to a part where I know, as you can see, there's no waveform here, so there's no audio. So I know I probably won't be using that, but let's go to where he starts talking here and see what he says.
See, I can see that as a rational fear. That's maybe they're like a little puddle of water they're afraid to walk on. They might slip.
Okay, so let's say I want to use this, and I'm not really paying that great attention to what he's saying because that doesn't really matter. The point is just knowing how to do it. So let's say I want to have a cut here. This is where I want to start. To do that now, first of all, the tools here, it defaults to the selection tool. And here are your timeline tools right here. You have add track. If you want to add more tracks, it starts with 5, but you can add as many as the memory of your computer will allow. Snap. This means that the tracks will snap together and apart. It makes it a little easier, but you can shut that off so it slides more freely across the timeline. With snap, it'll make it so you can have stuff more less control. It'll be more wavy. It's just something to experiment with. But the most important one, these other ones here, you can add markers. You can go to the beginning and end of a marker. This one though, the razor tool, is what you'll be going back to. You start with the selection tool, which is the mouse, the arrow, and when you have the arrow on top of the tracks and the files, you can see it actually changes what it looks like. If I go to the end of it, it'll have this little, the 2 side-by-side arrows, and you can actually move it. This is cutting it from the front end, or you can do it from the back end, where if I just slide this, it'll cut that part of the video out already. And it's basically removing it from the project. It's not actually deleting the video, it's just cutting it up. So if I wanted to move this playhead, move it to the beginning of the audio, there we go. I can slide it back over to the beginning. So now it'll be right when he starts talking. And let's have him get to this part right here where he's sort of done doing his first little laughing bit. I'm gonna go to the razor tool, the other most important tool. So I'll select that. And now when I hover over the files, this little razor line appears. And where I select it is where it'll actually create cuts on the timeline. So as you can see, I hit it there and it chopped that file into 2 bits. Now if I deselect the razor tool, which is the scissors, I can individually move these parts around. They're separate from each other, and I can adjust them, manipulate them on the timeline, like that, moving it up into a different track, actually layering it on top of each other. If I want to make additional cuts, select my scissors, which is a razor tool. Let's just make some cuts here. Here, I'm going to cut out these dead spaces. I'm going to deselect the scissors, go back to my select tool, which is just the mouse arrow, and let's clip these little portions off where he's not talking, like that, slide them together. Again, I'm just hand fisting these things, putting it around arbitrarily. I'm not paying attention to what he's saying, but of course you would in your project. So there, we've cut out those little dead spaces. And right there, that's editing. That's all there is to it. You put stuff on the timeline, you chop it up, you arrange it where you want it to be. Let's say I want this part to precede this part. I can move it around. So if I like what he was saying here, before. You know, now it's out of order how it was originally shot, but that doesn't matter. It's all about how you want to be presented. So now I have my, I've done some editing. Let's say I want to add other layers to this to cover up what, you know, he's talking. I want some B-roll on there. So I'm going to use this, I'm just going to use this posing by a pumpkin that I have. So let's say while he's talking, I want to cover up this cut right here because we have a jump cut from him talking here, as you can see, and then it's going to jump to a different shot because I edited it. It's different in the video. I want to cover up that scene with some B-roll. So let's put this B-roll right on top of it, and I'm going to trim this down. And while he's talking now, it'll cover up that cut with an outside shot. And this is when you watch interviews and stuff, they're always cutting away to B-roll where you're basically showing different visuals while someone's talking. It helps to make it more dynamic, make it more visually pleasing, and give you more like insight. Like while he's talking about something, you're showing what he's talking about. So here he's talking, we cut away to some B-roll, he's still talking underneath, and then it's going to go back to the interview. So that's how B-roll is typically used. Watch any, watch stuff on the news or any interview, anything like that. This is how it's done. It's basically you take your footage and you lay other footage on top of it to cover up cuts and make it look more pleasing and presenting the information you want to present. So I'll add some more on this scene and deselect that. And then I'm going to delete this by right-clicking and hitting remove. I think if you just select it, you can also hit delete, and that'll remove it. And always you can undo by hitting Control or Command Z based on the computer that you have. So here I have some more B-roll of some giant pumpkins. Cover up that cut. All right, so now I have my interview. I have some B-roll cutting up, or covering up these editing cuts. Let's just make this short since we don't want it that long. Delete this. So let's say here's my interview. That's all I want. It's a simple minute-long little interview. Now I want to add some music to give it some structure. So I have some music here. I'm just going to drag that in. I like to put music on the bottom layer. Because it's music, there's no video. It's just going to show, it's just going to be audio playing. So you can put it on, in this program, any layer, and it won't cover up. Whereas with video, if you put one video on top of another layer, it's going to cover up the layer below it. Think of it in stacks, like one sheet on top of another, it's covering that one up. Whereas you can still hear what's happening underneath it, you can't see it anymore because you've covered up the visuals. So if I want this music here, and again, let's say I want to see that music, I'm going to do right-click and go to Display, Show Waveform, and once it processes a little bit, it should show the actual music waveform. And hopefully it isn't too laggy. As you can see, my little circle of spinning is happening. Something else to remember with anything that you're doing, any project, you want to save it. And we should have done that immediately. Right now, it's still called Untitled Project. But if you go to File, Save Project As, that's important. And frequently save it throughout your project, especially after you've done a lot of work on it, so that you continue to not lose progress if it does freeze up. Here, so like here, I'll just go to Save Project As. It's still thinking with that waveform that I asked it to do. Kind of wish I didn't do that now. If I can just delete that out.
David, there was a question in the chat about adding titles over the video.
Okay, I'm not going to bother saving it at this point, is it? But okay, titles. We'll do that next because yeah, that's another element that people like. And unfortunately, with my little PDF sheet that I have attached as a link there, I didn't include titles in there. I just didn't get to that, but I'm going to real quickly restart this because it is not being fast enough for the limited time we have. So let me just, not that.
There's also, while we're restarting here, a question about how to adjust the volume. So if you have like music playing underneath, how to adjust it so it's not overpowering the person talking.
Right. Let me, well, since we're doing the video, audio, let's do that first. So let me change my view again so I can get that properties. So I'll put some music down here again. I'm not going to bother changing the, make it so we can see the waveform this time because for some reason it didn't like that for the moment. So let's say I have this music. Let me just trim it at the end of the project here and delete this back in. So I have music. I'll unplug it so you can hear it. Can you hear the audio right there? I think because I restarted with the headphones out.
No, we can't hear the audio.
Let me just do this again. This is an Apple thing. Apple is fighting with the audio itself because it doesn't like switching between headphones and not. So not a problem. We'll just bring it back again. All right, so with audio, let me just import these again. Or hold on, better yet, I'll just reopen the file I just had. If I can go to recent projects, here's the one I just had. So there it is. So now I should be able to hear the audio.
Yes.
So if I select this in the little property windows column, you can adjust the audio here. You see down here, there's a volume. And with this program, it's based on percentages, which is different than what other programs will have, which will be by decibels. So you just got to play it by how it sounds best to you. So for instance, I want the audio, let's say I want the audio at 0.5%. That'll lower it that way. Basically, this is how you do it. You select the video element, you go to the little properties column, and then you can make those adjustments of the volume as well as all the other stuff that we have in here. But that's how you adjust the volume in this program. So for music purposes, you'd want the volume a little lower to more get that music. And let's get some titles on here since this is a really quick tutorial and we're running out of time. So title, if I want to add some titles to this little edit, you can go up to the top and there should be a file that says title. You go to add, this title, and you have some real basic titles to choose from. They're all editable, but there's not a whole lot to work with in this regard. It's part of the basic of this program, the limitations of it, because it's not that detailed, but this should get you there at least start. So let's say I just take the standard title, and here I want to change it to interview. You can change the font, change the color. Let's make the color yellow. Okay. Oh, yellow. Okay. Now, really, really basic, terrible title. But there it is. It shows up in your project file. You just drag it on like a regular element. And then again, you can cut this up and adjust it as you see fit. Let's do another thing here. I mean, I guess we can see the timeline a little more. One last thing to cover before we're all done. So we have a little title there, music, how to cut, select, edit. You can have transitions. You can add transitions and effects. There's some tabs here. What you'll do is you drag it on. Let's say like I want to blur this up, drag it onto what you want to drag it onto, and there'll be a little icon here that'll indicate that that effect is on there. You click on that, and then it lets you go to the properties and adjust those. So as you can see, I have a blur here on here. If I want to get rid of that, I can just right click that little blue icon and go to remove effect and make it so it's not blurry. you want to change
And
the
there was
color.
a question, David, about audio transitions, like fading in and out, and that's the same place you go to do something like that.
Let me show you that. So here's how you add effects, and how you adjust them through the properties. I'm just going to remove this. Transitions. These are video transitions. So let's say I wanted to have just a simple fade. You can drag it on here. Make it so it's not so long. So as you can see here, I'll go to that. It'll fade in now, and you can drop those onto these. Some of these transitions are just kind of funky and weird, something to explore and play around with. And also with each of these files has a little drop down arrow. If you click on it, it'll show you different elements that you can add directly onto it without having to go to the effects or transitions. So, for example, volume. You can have you can adjust stuff here, levels, and with animate, we're up to fade. Here we go. You can have simple fades where you have a fade in from black, slow, fast, and you can do the same thing with the audio. If I want to fade up my audio, I can go to whatever it was, volume. I think it was fade. So you just fade in, and then when you add it, you can adjust the levels of it, or you should be able to just drag a transition onto the audio as well, and this will fade up the audio, depending on what you're putting onto. So as you can see, this audio I put under does have a video layer to it, which I don't like. So I'm just
Okay. We are about out of time.
all right. The
And
last
so,
thing I need to show you before
okay.
we close out is how to export a video, because you do all your editing without exporting, you got nothing. So to export, you go to File, Export Project, Export Video. This will let you change, put the name of it however you want. So interview, you choose where you want to save it, desktop. And then here's where you can say the settings that you want to export your video. In my case, I have it set to video profile 1080p, which is high definition, 2997, 19 by 20 by 1080. As you can see, if you click on that, you have a lot of options to choose from. This might take some research of what's best. I'm using the broadcast standards, is what television is, 1080. If you're doing something that's smaller, like for the internet, 720p. A good rule of thumb, though, is you want to export to what you're going to be using it on, like on TV or your computer or video or your phone. You want to export to that standard, and you don't want to make it worse than what it is typically. So like I filmed these videos in 1080p, which is high def. So to export it at 720 is making it lower quality than it needs to be. If it's only going to be seen at a low quality, then that doesn't matter. But I like to have it as high quality as possible. So let's keep it there. Broadcasting, I'm going to show this on TV, let's say. And I hit export video, and it just will export to where you just decide to save it. And then you should be able to open it up and go from there. So again, just to rehash, open the program, lay it out how you want it to, import videos into your video project files column, drag stuff on the timeline, chop it up, add your effects and adjustments, and then export. And there you go. That's how you edit.
Okay, two things. Suggestions for a video shot on a phone, up and down. don't shoot it that way, or is there anything that you can do?
That's the aspect ratio. For example, here's a phone right here. This is television. You shoot. You view stuff horizontally, but with phones these days, everyone just picks it up and it's just natural to hold it up and down. Well, when you do that, you're going to end up with a video that's got two black bars on the sides. The video quality will look great right in the middle, but the two black bars. So I would suggest having it rotated horizontally. However, you can edit it so that it is with the black bars if you want to view it on a phone. It's something you're just gonna have to experiment with. Uh, and you'll see a lot of times what people do is they take the video footage that is shot on a phone, like if it's unavoidable, and they'll put another video layer underneath and blur it out and stretch it out. So you'll see those, instead of black bars, it's a picture that's blurry in the background. There's different ways to get around it. If you watch stuff on YouTube or the news and things, they always have get video footage shot vertically and then try to have ways to make it look less obvious. But I mean, it just depends on how you shoot it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I did post the link to the quick guide handout again in the chat box, so you should be able to get that URL, and then that'll connect you to Google Drive that has the handout, and then also there's one for sample if you want to try working with the footage that David put in there, or you can use your own. But there's some sample footage in there, right?
And there are other resources, if you choose to, that are free. OpenShot is one. Caden Live is another one. It's on that handout. DaVinci Resolve is a pretty heavy duty, high end one that's free. If you want to get into the weeds with that, it's kind of higher level. But they're all free and they're all available. And there's tons of tutorials out there through YouTube with DaVinci Resolve. If you graduate to that or want to go there, there's a nice lengthy tutorial that you can get to through lynda.com through your library with your library card. And then there's paid editing programs too, like Premiere, Final Cut. We have these options available with OpenSignal, but if you can go to the local media resource center, they'll generally have stuff that you can work, have classes and community that you can will help you out. But it's that when it comes to this stuff, it always comes down to you've got to put into work to learn it, and that's how it works. Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet, but time and practice, you'll get there. So thank you for attending, and hopefully you have a good start, unless you're, or whatever you need to get what you want.
Okay. Thank you so much, David. That was great.
All right. Well, have a good day, everyone, and I will hope to see you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye. How was that?